Hello, it's Randi Rhodes. Here's a clip from our show, and go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.
Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
It's Friday, you bastards.
You know, girls, it's great to live in a democracy today.
Yes.
Where freedom is everywhere.
Everywhere.
But girls, we often take this freedom for granted.
We do.
Freedom of speech.
That.
Freedom of thought.
What?
And freedom of action.
Do something.
But you know, gals,
What?
just because a bunch of men signed that Declaration of Independence in 1776 doesn't mean that freedom was for men alone.
Oh, no?
Oh, no, you take Tom Jefferson.
Okay.
Ben Franklin.
You know.
John Hancock. There's a hell of a guy for you right there. All these men had wives.
Yes.
They probably had a few broads on the side, too.
The right side.
These women wanted freedom just as much as their men did.
Yeah.
But gals, I wonder, do we? I think it's time that we women thought about it a bit.
Okay.
Hell, I think it's time we did something about it.
Hell.
So come on, fellow females of the 20th century.
21st.
Be glad that you're an American.
I'm glad.
Proclaim your freedom.
Freedom.
And attention.
Oh.
Pledge allegiance.
Allegiance.
And
Bounce your boobies, Lindsay.
But here's what's so frustrating for Republicans like me. You may be the first president in history to go down because you can't stop inappropriately talking about an investigation that if you just were quiet would clear you. It's frustrating for me to want to help a man who I think will do big things no other Republican would do, like immigration. Believe it or not, I think Donald Trump may deliver us from a broken immigration system.
Oh, yes. Donald Trump is self-emulating. He's creating his own hell, which is fine. It's fine if he wants to create his own hell. The problem is he's creating one for us. Why? Why is he creating? It's unbelievable. So he is so self-destructive. I think he may be part lemming. I'll let you guess which part. But, you know, if you show Donald Trump a cliff, he will stick his nose into, he will go. I mean, and fewer people are willing to go over the cliff with him. Now, don't call me and tell me that you've seen videos on the YouTube where the lemming doesn't really do that. Because I've seen them too. But I've never really checked it out. Anyway, he might be partly. I don't know. This is a man who said he trusts his gut. I trust my gut. His gut must be the angriest gut in the history of guts. Okay, because all he does is throw taco bowls and mayonnaise and Kentucky Fried Chicken. How could you trust that gut? That gut is pissed off at all the crap you shovel into it. We don't want to trust his gut. It's as bad as my gut, and I think we all know I got ulcers, baby. So, anyway, the Washington Post broke a story. They broke a bunch of stories last night, and one of them says, quote, Donald Trump keeps creating his own personal hell. I mean, they don't mince words anymore over at the Washington Post. I say, let Trump run hell. Right? I don't think the devil would say, the devil would pick, a lawyer, obviously. We've all seen The Devil's Advocate. He would never pick Donald Trump. The same reason why we shouldn't have picked Donald Trump, because Donald Trump will get nothing done. All Donald Trump does is overturn anything Obama did. That is what Donald Trump does, plus he tweets. So I don't think the devil even wants him. I really don't. I mean, here you have a demon. He calls everything a witch hunt. It's turning into a little bitch hunt. This man is so whiny. He's so whiny, complains every day, all the time. And even before the sun comes up and the rooster crows, he's already complaining. Stop whining, you silly little bitch. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Every day you wake up, oh, he's complaining again. He's complaining again. Look at all these stinking tweets. Look at them. There's so many of them. He just won't stop bitching. But I did like the fact that he had to tweet these words. I am being investigated. Yay! There's progress for you right there. That gave me some solace. At least he realizes now, what he has done. He said, I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director. And then he writes witch hunt. And it isn't in caps. So I wonder, is he okay? He didn't put witch hunt in caps. Is he okay? Is he all right? What's going on? Oh my God, my bleeding heart, just can't, not care. But he forgot to capitalize witch hunt, and he didn't even put an exclamation point, behind it. I'm worried about him. I really am. I'm concerned. It's sad. But, yes, he had to type, I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director. Now, that would be funny if it were true. The reason why that's not particularly hysterical is because Rod Rosenstein was not the reason you fired Comey. You told that to Lester Holt, and you even said everybody likes Rod Rosenstein, and it doesn't really matter what Rod Rosenstein told me to do because I was going to fire him anyway. It didn't matter what he recommended. I didn't really care what he recommended. I fired Comey because the FBI was in turmoil, which it is now because we don't have an FBI director. The State Department is in turmoil. We don't have an ambassador to any freaking place ever that we had. Do you know what I mean? But he gave several reasons, and he said the reason why he fired Comey was not because of what Rod Rosenstein recommended at all. He said he could have recommended, he could not recommend, doesn't matter. I was going to fire him anyway because of the Russia thing. So his tweets, while that was pithy, it wasn't funny because it's not true. And it's not true because he says it's not true, and this is the hell he is creating for himself. He is in the ninth circle of Scavulo hell, which has every supermodel, that ever, slept with him, there.
Look, he's a showboat. He's a grandstander. The FBI has been in turmoil. You know that. I know that.
No one knows that.
You take a look at the FBI a year ago. It was in virtual turmoil less than a year ago. It hasn't recovered from that.
Monday, you met with the Deputy Attorney General, Rod Rosenstein.
Right.
Did you ask for a recommendation?
What I did is I was going to fire Comey. My decision. It was not.
You had made the decision before they came in the room.
I was going to fire Comey. There's no good time to do it, by the way.
Because in your letter you said I accepted their recommendation.
Yeah, well,
so you had already made the decision.
I was going to fire regardless of recommendation.
So there was
He made a recommendation. He's highly respected, very good guy, very smart guy. The Democrats like him, the Republicans like him. He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey, knowing there was no good time to do it. And in fact, when I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse.
Everything Trump touches turns to Trump. Every freaking thing he touches turns to Trump. Next time, you stub your toe or you get a paper cut or something like that, just say, "Oh, Trump." It just turns to Trump. It's all Trump. Everything is Trump. He's so self-destructive. I've never seen any. And now he's dying to fire Mueller and Rod Rosenstein. It's like the kiss of death. It's almost like he thinks he's Michael Corleone. He's probably Sonny, right? Sonny, because W was Fredo. Right, W was Fredo. He attacked an unarmed nation and spent $6 trillion on this thing. But Trump is like Sonny. He was just a rotten kid, and he's still a rotten kid. It's like dealing with a 3-year-old is what this is. And he actually says himself that he hasn't changed much since he was in, grade school, where he was so disruptive his parents sent him away. And now he's this wounded boy. And, even when Marla Maples started dating him, even though he was still married to Ivana Divorce, even though he was still married to her, Marla said he was like, her fondest wish was that she could soothe the hurt little boy and get him to stop demanding so much attention all the time. It's just so fascinating. Nothing has changed with him. Nothing. Except that now he's the president of the United States, and he wants to do the stupidest things that there are to do. And I mean, Trump and stupid seem to be very close in touch with each other. So he floats this trial balloon this week through Chris Ruddy from Newsmax, saying that he may fire Mueller. He's thinking about firing Mueller just to see, if the Republicans would stand by him, and they won't. Even Ken Starr. You talk about a witch hunt. That was Ken Starr. Did you ever read the Starr report? Oh no, it's porn. It's absolute. It's like Comey talks about intel porn. This was investigative porn. It's porn, man. You got stuff in there about cigars and orifices and dresses and stains and who was where in what room and how she and then he and then and gifts being given. Leaves of grass, poetry. I mean, it's porn. It's real porn. What's going on here is intel porn. And I swear to you, the Republicans are going to stay with Trump until I don't think that they'll ever, the Republicans have admitted that the Russia thing is not a hoax, that they really did just not only hack our elections, but that they got much, much further than we ever thought, and that they hacked into 39 different states, and that they were looking to delete people from voter rolls, and then they got into the software company down here in Florida, and they hacked into that, and they were interested in the software that went in the machine. I mean, the Republicans don't deny that. The only person that denies that is Donald Trump, and I swear to you, he will deny that until we hack his Pornhub account. Russia, if you're listening, I'd love to get the 30,000 porn videos he's watched on Pornhub. I'm sure the press will reward you mightily. That's that. I mean, until somebody actually, goes into Trump's personal porn. I will tell you that, everybody's lawyered up. And I tell you that the thing that I watch for, the thing that you look for, the thing that we'll know whether or not Trump is really under investigation and who else is under investigation by who hires lawyers. Well, the answer to that question has been answered to everybody. Everybody has hired lawyers. Mike Pence is lawyered up. You got, what's his name? Cohen. That Cohen dude who said he couldn't have been in where did they say? In the dossier, they said he had traveled over there to meet with Russians. And he said, oh, I couldn't because I was with my kids or something. Anyway, he's lawyered up. Everybody's lawyered up. Jared Kushner, his financial dealings. That's another story that got broken last night by the Washington Post. Jared Kushner is under investigation for financial dealings with the bank that was under U.S. sanctions. They're all getting lawyered up. And, I really feel bad for staff at the White House because what you may not know, staff has to hire their own lawyers. Can you imagine working in that White House now?
For a commercial-free, on-demand, whenever, wherever listening experience, visit RandiRhodes.com for your personal premium podcast today.
Hey, dads, Father's Day is just around the corner, but this Father's Day, I want you to stop and think about one word: legacy. Legacy is a very powerful and defining word, and I want to know what kind of legacy you inherited. Now, what kind of legacy are you going to leave for your children? I want you to call my friends at ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and have a conversation about the legacy building power in gold. Gold has helped dads create financial legacies for their children for thousands of years. Gold is real money. It can't go bankrupt. It survived every failed government, every economic crisis in history. Gold symbolizes wealth and safety. So dads, if you've been thinking about buying gold, now is the perfect time because gold is on sale, priced below record highs. And you can get gold and silver delivered right to your home or office. Start building a golden legacy for your children today by calling ITM Trading right now at 1-888-OWN-GOLD. 1-888-OWN-GOLD. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1918. That was the day Eugene V. Debs, leader of the Socialist Party, gave his legendary anti-war speech in Canton, Ohio. The speech, for which he would eventually be arrested, tried, and convicted under the Espionage Act. Though he avoided explicitly criticizing World War I or President Wilson, he made clear his views. He gave the speech at a park near the jail where Charles Baker, Charles Rutenberg, and Alfred Wagenacht, 3 prominent socialists, were being held on Espionage Act-related charges. Debs noted, quote, "It is extremely dangerous to exercise the constitutional right of free speech in a country fighting to make democracy safe in the world." Debs was defiant. He unloaded his rage against the judicial system and the conviction of socialist leader Kate Richards O'Hare for her anti-war views. He railed against the suppression of Max Eastman's socialist press and the ongoing persecution of socialists Tom Mooney and William Billings. Debs briefly reviewed the history of wars in Europe and made the following observation, saying, quote, "The master class has always taught and trained you to believe it is your patriotic duty to go to war and to have yourselves slaughtered at their command. But in all the history of the world, you, the people, have never had a voice in declaring war. The working class, who fight all the battles, the working class, who make the supreme sacrifices, the working class, who freely shed their blood and furnish the corpses, have never yet had a voice in declaring war or making peace." For this, he was convicted of advocating disloyalty and draft resistance and sentenced to 10 years in prison. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randy, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
During the 2016 campaign season, do you have any contacts with any representative, including any American lobbyist or agent of any Russian company within or outside your capacity as a member of Congress or a member of the Armed Services Committee?
I don't believe so.
Okay, that's important. Let's play that one more time, shall we?
During the 2016 campaign season, do you have any contacts with any representative, including any American lobbyist or agent of any Russian company within or outside your capacity as a member of Congress or a member of the Armed Services Committee?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, that's false. Isn't that something? That's false. Turns out that not only did Sessions meet with a lobbyist for Russian interests, but the lobbyist for Russian interests is now talking and confirming that Sessions' testimony under oath that he did not have any contacts with a lobbyist working for Russian interests over the course of the Trump campaign is untrue. The lobbyist's name is Richard Burt. He is our former ambassador to Germany during the Reagan administration. And for the last few years, he has represented Russian interests in Washington. And he told the Guardian newspaper that he could confirm previous media reports that stated that he had contacts with Jeff Sessions at the time. Therefore, Jeff Sessions' testimony that he had no contacts with Russian lobbyists, which McCain specifically asked him, because I got a funny feeling McCain specifically knows Richard Burt and knows what Richard Burt does. Richard Burt is on the advisory board of Alpha Bank. Isn't that something? And Alpha Bank is the server that was rumored to be in Trump Tower. And of course they said, oh, it was just for advertising or something, and that no messages were being sent over the server. I don't know. But it's a private equity fund where Alpha Bank was an investor. And last year he was lobbying on behalf of a pipeline company that is now completely 100% controlled by Russia's state-controlled energy conglomerate Gazprom. I mean, why would he lie about such a thing? Why? This man, Richard Burt, actually wrote part of the speech that was delivered at the Mayflower Hotel. Who was at the Mayflower Hotel? Obviously, Kislyak was at the Mayflower Hotel. Who else was at the Mayflower Hotel? Jeff Sessions was at the Mayflower Hotel. And who gave the speech at the Mayflower Hotel? Donald Trump gave the speech at the Mayflower Hotel. Who wrote the Russian portion of the speech where he was saying, I don't know why we're enemies with Russia. We should be able to get along. You don't know why we're enemies with Russia? You don't know why. They kill freaking journalists. That's why. They hacked our elections. That's why. They invade their neighbors like Crimea. They annexed Ukraine. They tried to take Montenegro. Montenegro is the newest member of NATO. You said NATO was obsolete. That's why. So Mr. Richard Burt, not to be confused with Richard Burton, but that is the good way that you could remember who he is. He was on the advisory board of Alpha Capital Partners, which is a private equity fund where Russia's Alpha Bank is the main investor. He was lobbying on behalf of a pipeline company that is owned by Gazprom, which is the state-owned, state-controlled energy conglomerate. He told Politico back in October, this is why they're so stupid. They should not be running anything. Not anything. They can't even run my board, all right? Nothing. I would put them in charge of nothing. But he told Politico in October that he had been invited to 2 dinners that were hosted by Jeff Sessions last summer at the height of the presidential campaign. Now, obviously, John McCain's staff, I won't say John McCain because, he stays up all night and, watches baseball games. And I'm sure last night he was watching that baseball. Didn't you love the unity last night at the baseball game? Wasn't that something? And then, Trump was almost presidential the day before. And then he takes to the Twitter and creates his own little hell again. But John McCain obviously knows this, which is why the question was, it's like you never ask a question you don't know the answer to. So listen,
During the 2016 campaign season, do you have any contacts with any representative, including any American lobbyist or agent of any Russian company within or outside your capacity as a member of Congress or a member of the Armed Services Committee?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, you did. Yes, you did. You absolutely 100% did. And his name is Richard Burt. And he is a Russian lobbyist. He's an American who lobbies like Manafort. Same thing. It's the same damn thing. There are people that actually in this country make money by lobbying on behalf of hostile adversarial governments. And they get paid for it. It's an amazing thing. It's like Manafort did it. Flynn did it. Flynn was paid by Russia. Manafort was paid by Russia. Richard Burt is paid by Russia. It's an amazing thing when you get into this field of lobbying. What you find out, it's bizarre. It's absolutely bizarre. And so here we have Jeff Sessions lying again under oath to the Senate. It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And when we were watching that testimony, I told you he's lying. I knew he was lying. People didn't know, and I kept giving everybody a chance. Is he a weasel? These weasel words? Or is he, is his brain addled? Is his brain ossified? Does he have the syphilis too? Or is he lying? But he's lying. Now, here you have Mueller poking around into Jared Kushner's business dealings, too. Oh, I hope he wears rubber gloves when he does that. Ew. But, the only thing I could give Trump credit for is he brought in even from all walks of life, the most diverse rogues gallery of mungy people, people not up to the task, people who were weasels, people who would use weasel words, people who would lie under oath, people who would have no legal basis for not answering questions to Congress, but would just sit there with a straight face and do it. Oh, and by the way, Mueller yesterday met with Dan Coates, from the director of national intelligence. He met with Dan Coates, and I don't know what they talked about, but 3 hours he testified to the Senate Intelligence Committee in closed session because he wouldn't testify in public session to them. Don't you remember? Like that happened. Everything seems like 100 years ago. But
Mr. Coates, same series of questions. What's the basis for your refusal to answer these questions today?
The basis is what I've previously explained. I do not believe it is appropriate for me to.
What's the basis? I'm not satisfied with I do not believe it is appropriate or I do not feel I should answer. I want to understand a legal basis. You swore that oath to tell us the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, and today you are refusing to do so. What is the legal basis for your refusal to testify to this committee?
I'm not sure I have a legal basis.
It's really pretty stunning. I mean, you've got people that will actually sit there and say that and put themselves in jeopardy. So Dan Coates said, I don't have a legal basis for not answering a question. I'm just not going to do it. And Mueller, is going to interview. I think, I don't know if Mueller did or didn't this week. It was supposed to have happened this week. But I do know yesterday, Coates was called, and so was Admiral Rogers, to testify in front of the Senate Intelligence Committee in a closed hearing because he wouldn't answer either.
Director Coates and Admiral Rogers. I think you testified, Admiral Rogers, that you did discuss today's testimony with someone in the White House.
I said I asked, did the White House intend to evoke executive privileges associated with any interactions between myself and the President of the United States?
And what was the answer to that question?
To be honest, I didn't get a definitive answer, and both myself and the DNI are still talking to the White House. So
then I'll ask both of you the same question. Why are you not answering these questions? Is there an invocation by the President of the United States of executive privilege? Is there or not?
Not that I'm aware of.
Then why are you not answering our
questions? I feel it is
questions?
inappropriate, Senator.
What you feel isn't relevant, Admiral.
Oh, my God.
What you feel isn't the answer. The answer is, why are you not answering the questions? Is it an invocation of executive privilege? If there is, then let's know about it. If there isn't, answer the questions.
I stand by the comments I've made. I'm not interested in repeating myself, sir.
Oh.
I don't mean that in a
combative way.
Well, I do mean it in a contentious way. I don't understand why you're not answering our questions. You can't. When you were confirmed before the Armed Services Committee, you took an oath. Do you solemnly swear to give the committee the truth, the full truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God. You answered yes to that.
And I've also answered that those conversations were classified, and it is not appropriate in an open forum.
All right, that's
to
a reason.
Discuss those classified conversations.
What is classified about a conversation involving whether or not you should intervene in the FBI investigation?
Sir, I stand by my previous comments.
See, and now you know what we've learned so far. So what we've learned is that Admiral Rogers and Dan Coates, NSA director and DNI director, director of the National Intelligence, they wouldn't answer the questions. They had no legal basis not to. Admiral Rogers tried to say some of this material is classified, but it wasn't, because the question that Angus King was asking him had nothing to do with anything that was classified. And so it seemed like he had, okay. But what we've learned since then is that both those men were approached by Donald Trump, and both those men were asked to intervene with Comey and to get Comey to say in public that the president was not under investigation. And Comey wouldn't say that in public because there was one of his team, Comey's team, that disagreed that the president would not become somebody that was being investigated. And they didn't want to put Comey out there to say the president is not investigated because it would create for Comey a duty to reverse himself again. And Comey would then have to answer questions. Why wasn't he? And now he is. And Comey didn't want to be in that position. But there was one guy in his office that told him not to do it. And Comey said, now we know who the guy is. The guy's name inside the FBI that Comey had in those meetings was James Baker. That's his name. He was the member of Comey's team that said, do not go out there and tell the president that he's not tell the American people that the president's not under investigation, because the way this is going, he could very well be. And then you'll have a duty to reverse yourself. And you don't want that because we already got, sandbagged by the Hillary Clinton thing. And look at all the heartache that caused. You told Congress that if you got any new emails, you would go and you would update, your testimony. But for now, the investigation was done. The investigation into Hillary's emails took over a year. It was closed. There was no hacking of her server. There was no compromise of any classified information. She was maybe careless. He said she was careless with classified information, but no crime had been committed and no hacking had occurred and no adversary had gotten a hold of any documents that they shouldn't get a hold of. And so case closed. Then all of a sudden, the New York FBI, the NYPD seizes Anthony Weiner's computer They shove it in front of your face without any forensics. Now you have to do the forensics, but before you can do it, you have to tell Congress you just came into receipt of some new material. And then 10 days later, you have to go back out and say, okay, so now we've done the forensics and the new material was really old material. And look at the mess that caused. So that's why Comey listened to James Baker's advice, who was a member of his team, not to announce. But Trump was obsessed with getting Comey to announce that he wasn't under investigation for collusion. And they disagreed because they didn't know if he would ever end up under investigation. And of course, today, President Trump is under investigation for obstruction. Now, what they had back then as well, besides for the Comey memos that Comey started to keep way back in January 7th, the first meeting in Trump Tower, where Comey had the unfortunate role of having to tell the incoming POTUS that he had been named in a dossier doing something really salacious with hookers in Russia at the Ritz-Carlton Hotel in the same room that Barack and Michelle Obama had slept in. It was given to Comey, that task, to tell that to the president. And all President Trump wanted to know was he being personally investigated for that? And Comey kept assuring him he was not under investigation personally for what was in the dossier. But Comey would never go further than that. Turns out, President Trump, because he's a 3-year-old, went to Dan Coats and went to Admiral Rogers and asked them to intervene in the Comey announcement that he wanted Comey to make. And they were so concerned that they created memos about the contacts that Trump was having with them regarding telling Comey to clear him. So now there's other memos. And this, I think, is what they did not want to say in open session. Why, I have no idea. They were obligated, if asked, to tell that they were so concerned that they also created contemporaneous memos. And the man that created them and holds those memos is a man named Leggett. And Mr. Leggett confirmed that, yes, memos were created because Dan Coats was so alarmed about what the president was asking him to do with regard to James Comey. Then the whiny little bitch, as Bill Maher would call him, starts tweeting after Comey gives his first round of testimony confirming that there is an investigation, but leaves out the part that the president isn't personally under investigation for this salacious thing that's in the dossier. He says that he is conducting an investigation, a counterintelligence one, into Russian hacking, and if any Trump associates cooperated with the Russians. This is what sets Donald Trump off on another Twitter thing. And this is why he's making his own hell.
To speak to Randi, call now, you bastards. 561-270-3844.
Hello.
Randi Rhodes. Air Force.
We did it, you bastards! We're live! And it only took 2 years! Okay. All right. So we're back, we're live, and you're there, and we're here, and ain't that great? Now let me just tell you that if you want to listen whenever and wherever you'd like to listen, just go to RandiRhodes.com, click on podcasts and swag, and get your podcast commercial-free, on demand, on any device. RandiRhodes.com. Open all day, every day.
Just when you thought corporate ethics couldn't get any creepier, there is news that some of the country's largest companies are spending big money to stop we the public from being able to fix their faulty products. You heard that right. So-called right-to-repair laws are pending in nearly a dozen states, including New York. They'd require electronic companies, for example, to sell replacement parts and tools and make repair guides available to the public. Makers oppose repairs. They'd rather just sell us all new stuff or force us to sign up for their proprietary replacement parts and costly service programs. Apple, Verizon, Lexmark, Medtronic, even Toyota and Caterpillar are among the corporations who are going all out to squash right-to-repair legislation. Vice has a whole beat following the dispute on their motherboard blog. The right-to-repair spat caught my eye because I'm a tinkerer, first of all. From old cars to old lamps, I love cracking open a piece of broken machinery, studying how it works, and getting it functioning again. It beats throwing it away, and not just for pocketbook reasons. Computers have already made the tinkerer's life harder. Software is patented, laws forbid unlicensed repairs, landfills are filling up with toxic components and hard plastic cases. That would be reason enough to pay attention, but there's also the David versus Goliath aspect. According to New York State's Joint Commission on Public Ethics, the company's spending is dwarfing their opposition by thousands of dollars to one. And the last standout part of this is what it reminds us about capitalism. Corporate-driven media and captured politicians have taught generations of us that businesses just want freedom from taxes, from regulations, limits, you name it. But what they really want is freedom to control the very government they mock. They're not against government, not if they own it, which takes us to something even creepier. You may have heard that the Trump budget would slash some $72 billion from services for disabled people, including those injured on the job and their kids. The cuts amount almost exactly to what just one corporation, Apple, is offshoring to avoid paying taxes. $72 billion in cuts versus $75 billion in Apple's offshored accounts. Corporate ethics is a contradiction in terms. Maybe it's time to retire the phrase altogether. I'm Laura. You can write to me, laura@lauraflanders.com, and tell me what you think. You can also sign up for our free podcast and find all the archives of this program at our website. That's lauraflanders.com. And thanks.
The Randi Rhodes Show is brought to you by our partners at ITM Trading. Call them at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and ask for a free gold kit. 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
All right, so this is the speech that Donald Trump gave at the Mayflower Hotel. It's just a little part of it. And this speech was contributed to by this Russian lobbyist who used to be our ambassador to Germany in the Reagan years, who John McCain obviously knew had told Politico, which I know John McCain reads because whenever he asks this question, he goes, well, what about this article in Politico? So he asks the question of Jeff Sessions, have you ever met with a Russian lobbyist or anybody, that, advocates for Russia's position in the war, during the campaign? And he says, no, I don't believe so. Yes, but he has. And the guy's name is Richard Burt. And Richard Burt not only confirmed back in October that Jeff Sessions had 2 dinners with him as a Russian lobbyist on issues that matter to Russia and Gazprom and the Alpha Bank, where Donald Trump just so happened to have a server from Alpha Bank in his office in Trump Tower. It's weird. I don't know why to this minute. However, Richard Burt says that he wrote part of the Mayflower speech. And the Mayflower Hotel is where Comey, I don't know if this is, this is an unnamed source, said that when Comey met in closed session with the Senate Intelligence Committee last week, when Comey met with them, remember he alluded to a third meeting that Sessions may have had with Kislyak? Well, according to the leaks, the third meeting with Kislyak was at a reception ahead of this speech at the Mayflower Hotel. So, and now we have Richard Burt, who has told Politico back in October that he had dinner with Sessions as a Russian lobbyist, and that Sessions' testimony was not true, and that he knows this because he actually contributed to the speech. He actually wrote portions of the speech for Donald Trump. Richard Burt, the Russian lobbyist, wrote parts of this speech for Donald Trump. And when they asked him, did the parts that you wrote, did it make it into the speech? He said, actually, yes, they did.
We desire to live peacefully and in friendship with Russia and China.
This is it.
We have serious differences with these two nations and must regard them with open eyes. But we are not bound to be adversaries. We should seek common ground based on shared interests. Russia, for instance, has also seen the horror of Islamic terrorism. I believe an easing of tensions and improved relations with Russia from a position of strength only is possible, absolutely possible.
Now, they were hacking our elections when he gave this speech. They obviously, he now knows for sure, he was briefed that, before he became president, he was briefed that Russia had hacked our elections and that 16 intelligence agencies believed that they had hacked our elections. He was briefed as he was coming into office that Russia hacked our elections. And he still will not say a bad word about Russia and invites Sergei Kislyak and Sergei Lavrov. They're all named Sergei. In fact, my Russian hairdresser that I used to have in New York, I love that boy. He looked just like John Bon Jovi, but his name was Sergei too. We just called him Serge. But that this Richard Burt dude, this Russian lobbyist, actually wrote that portion of the speech. And that is why John McCain asked, Sessions under oath if he ever met with a Russian lobbyist during the campaign. And he's, don't believe so. And it's a lie.
During the 2016 campaign season, do you have any contacts with any representative, including any American lobbyist or agent of any Russian company within or outside your capacity as a member of Congress or a member of the Armed Services Committee?
I don't believe so.
That's a lie. It's an easily demonstrable lie. Now, I don't know how many times you get to lie to the Senate. I don't know how many times you get to lie under oath if you're an ex-senator or if you're the head of the Attorney General of the United States. I don't know. Let's say we give him, two lies. He surpassed that. This is a ridiculous situation that we find ourselves in.
Attorney General Sessions, has the president ever expressed his frustration to you regarding your decision to recuse yourself?
Senator Heinrich, I'm not able to share with this committee private communications.
Because you're invoking executive privilege.
I'm not able to invoke executive privilege. That's the president's prerogative.
Well, my understanding is that you took an oath, you raised your right hand here today, and you said that you would solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And now you're not answering questions. You're impeding this investigation. So my understanding of the legal standard is that you either answer the question, that's the best outcome. You say, this is classified, can't answer it here. I'll answer it in closed session. That's bucket number 2. Bucket number 3 is to say, I'm invoking executive privilege. There is no appropriateness bucket. It is not a legal standard. Can you tell me what are these long-standing DOJ rules that protect conversations made in the executive without invoking executive privilege?
Senator, I'm protecting the president's constitutional right by not giving it away before he has a chance to review it. And secondly, I am telling the truth in answering your question in saying it's a long-standing policy of the Department of Justice.
Are those policies written?
Even
those policies
and to make sure the president has full opportunity to decide these issues.
Can you share those policies with us? Are they written down at the Department of Justice?
I believe they are.
I believe they are.
Just on the first page of your 3 pages of written testimony, you wrote, nor do I recall, do not have recollection, do not remember it. So my question is, for any of your testimony today, did you refresh your memory with any written documents, be they your calendar, written correspondence, emails, notes of any sort?
I attempted to refresh my recollection, but so much of this is in a wholesale campaign of extraordinary nature that you're moving so fast that you don't keep notes. You meet people. I didn't keep notes of my conversation with the Russian ambassador at the Republican
I'd like
convention.
to just talk about what you did.
I'm just saying I didn't keep notes on most of these things, and there's nothing for me.
Will you provide this committee with the notes that you did maintain?
As appropriate, I will supply the committee with documents.
Can you please tell me what you mean when you say appropriate?
I would have to consult with lawyers in the department who know the proper procedure before disclosing documents that are held within the Department of Justice.
Attorney
and I'm
General
not able to make that opinion today.
Sir, I'm sure you prepared for this hearing today, and most of the questions that have been presented to you were predictable. So my question to you is, did you then review with the lawyers of your department, if you as the top lawyer are unaware, what the law is regarding what you can share with us and what you cannot share with us, what is privileged and what is not privileged?
We discussed the basic parameters of testimony. Frankly, have not discussed documentary disclosure rules.
Will you make a commitment to this committee that you will share any written correspondence, be they your calendars, records, notes, emails, or anything that has been reduced at any point in time in writing to this committee where legally you actually have an obligation to do so?
I'll commit to reviewing the rules of the department, and as
he's going to review the rules
when that issue is raised, to respond appropriately.
Did you have any communications with Russian officials for any reason during the campaign that have not been disclosed in public or to this committee?
I don't recall it, but I have to tell you, I cannot testify to what was said as we were standing at the Republican convention before the podium where I spoke.
My question is only as it relates to your knowledge.
I don't have the detailed memory of that.
Okay, as it relates to your knowledge. Did you have any communication with any Russian businessmen or any Russian nationals?
I don't believe I had any conversation with Russian businessmen or Russian nationals.
Are you aware of any
Although
communication?
a lot of people were at the convention, it's conceivable that somebody
Sir,
came
I
up to me.
have just a few.
Will you let me qualify it? If I don't qualify it, you'll accuse me of lying.
But you did lie.
So I need to be correct as best I can.
I do want you to be honest.
And I'm not able to be rushed this fast. It makes me nervous.
Are you aware of any communications with other Trump campaign officials and associates that they had with Russian officials or any Russian nationals?
I don't recall that.
He remembers nothing. He remembers nothing. He keeps no notes. He doesn't go over the rules. He's pretty sure that there are rules that he can find that will allow him not to answer questions. But the most simple thing is this little exchange with John McCain and Jeff Sessions.
During the 2016 campaign season, do you have any contacts with any representative, including any American lobbyist or agent of any Russian company within or outside your capacity as a member of Congress or a member of the Armed Services Committee?
I don't believe so.
Yeah, well, he did. And that is a lie. And everything that he did and all this, running around the question and couching it as appropriate. I don't recall. You cannot say, I don't recall under oath if you do. And so that's a lie too. I'll tell you something, I am going to enjoy watching every one of these diverse rogues gallery of lunatics, eat it big league. Quentin Tarantino couldn't have come up with a better rogues gallery. I mean, this is like the Hateful Eight or the Nervous Nine. Yeah, he's nervous. You're making me nervous. Aw, you're making me nervous. Daryl in Phoenix. May I help you?
Oh, yeah. When Comey was testifying, I never heard anyone ask him whether or not he had requested additional resources for his investigation.
Yeah, they did.
And I never, heard him mention having done that on his own without anyone asking him.
No, they didn't ask him about that. It's a good point that never got asked, but obviously Mueller needs more resources because he's hired like 13 lawyers already.
Yeah, well, anyway. Oh, I heard Malcolm Nance this morning on Stephanie.
Yeah.
And he said that he believes Trump is he's going to have to be forced out. He's not going to resign. I've heard a lot of people say they think he'll resign, but I don't think he will either. Because if he does, that'll adversely affect his brand. And as you say, his little boutique business couldn't handle, a hit like that.
Well, it is interesting. There's all these little stories that just go, like under the radar. Did you hear the story about how you had these three Chinese people who work for a group called Labor Watch, who had gone into Ivanka's shoe factory?
Yes.
And then they just disappeared, and no one knows what happened to them. You would think that would, have an inverse impact on her business.
Yeah, and this creep is trying to undo everything Obama did as far as opening up tourism and stuff for American citizens to Cuba.
Oh, why did he do that? I mean, it's like Cuba was just, we normalized relations with Cuba. And, about 87% of the people in the United States, especially young Cubans in Miami, are totally for that. They're totally, excited about it. You have women in Cuba who reached out to Ivanka saying, thank you for everything you're doing. We're women entrepreneurs, and now we do, all kinds of business with tourism and we're, Airbnb and all these different companies, are helping us, enrich ourselves and helping us, get out of the poverty grind that we've been in for 50 years. And just because, he made some stupid remark when he was campaigning about, I'm going to undo what Obama did in Cuba, he does it today. I mean, it's a $4 billion business that's already underway.
But that was his goal, to undo everything Obama did. The man hates Obama just
But to
much.
what end? He could have said, you know what? We did this exhaustive, research on the Cuba deal, and guess what? It's producing fabulous results.
Come on, you're talking about idiot boy.
Well, I know. I'm talking about what a real man, a real leader, a real president would have said. We reviewed the policy, and it's doing exactly what it was supposed to do, and it's increasing opportunities for both people here, in the United States, and for people in Cuba, and it's having a good result. Why does he want to get along so well with Russia, but not with Cuba? He will trash every single country except for Russia.
The Randi Rhodes Air Force. The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
This is the top of the hour from the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn. Instead of commercials, you've got progressive news and interviews right here at the top of the hour.
Hello, Progressive Voices Tune-In listeners. I'm Casey Hobbs.
And I'm Shane Mason, and we're the hosts of Nurse Talk Radio.
Here's what we're talking about this week. We just heard from Mitch McConnell talking about his favorite topic, the soon-to-be dismantled Obamacare. We know that Senate Republicans Committee is busy cooking up another poison pill. What are you hearing about the revised version of the repeal and replace?
Well, as you might imagine, nothing good when you have Mitch McConnell working behind closed doors with about 12 other older white guys who are determined to dismantle Obamacare and give the insurance companies the gifts of their lives in terms of making sure that the healthy and the young will be better able to afford coverage, and the rest of us will have to basically fend for ourselves and figure out a way to pay premiums that could be so enormous that people won't be able to afford any coverage.
Ugh, outrageous.
And so, Donna, what has to happen to pass this bill or to block this bill? What's going to happen next?
What appears they're going to do now is get themselves a plan together that they are going to vote on with and get 50 votes, but they will need 51. So they'll let their favorite Vice President, Mike Pence, cast that winning vote. They will send it back over to the House where the House will likely have already agreed with them to pass it. And that is what is so outrageous about this. No hearings, no ability for people to really weigh in. Although the one thing we do know is significantly is that the Medicaid expansion is in real danger. And the reality with that is that the Medicaid expansion provided health care coverage in some cases for the very first time for up to 35 million people after the Affordable Care Act allowed for states to expand Medicaid to 400% of the federal poverty level. And this is just a horrible scenario for the most vulnerable in our populations. And it's hard for me to imagine how the party and the leader of the party that espouses family values is aiming at this. We can only hope that the Republicans keep not being able to get their own house in order so that they leave it alone long enough for all of us to upend the election in 2018 so that we can protect some of what the Affordable Care Act did right and move forward to get us to Medicare for all, not only in California, but more broadly across the country.
Of course, we focus on this healthcare issue, but there's also an extremely regressive bill that the Republicans are working on now. Talk about what's happening to Dodd-Frank.
Absolutely. The House just passed their version of gutting Dodd-Frank, which Trump, of course, was thrilled that the House did this. The reality is Dodd-Frank was the bill that really put in place some protections against some of the abuses of the banking industry that resulted in the terrible deep recession of our system right on the verge of President Obama taking office in 2008. So now what we're seeing is this wanting to go back to the good old days when banks didn't have as much oversight, when consumer protections weren't really as strong as they have become under people like Elizabeth Warren, who worked diligently. You remember the TARP funds? Oh my gosh, we remember bailing out so much of Wall Street with these TARP funds, and in the wake of that, Elizabeth Warren was charged with not only being kind of the czar of the TARP funds to really require people to take a look at what they were doing with them, but then moving on to creating some real consumer protections around banking and around consumer finance issues. So to roll back those protections, I can only imagine, do people not understand, even when it comes to health care, we have a billing and collection industry in health care that abuses people terribly at the most terrible times in their lives. Now imagine that we're going to roll back these protections on the banking industry because we somehow long for the good old days. I don't quite understand what it is the Republicans think they're going to pull over on the American public in this rollback of protections. People will notice this. It will become a real problem for many families.
That's just frightening.
So what would you advise for our listeners? Is there anything that they can do? Contact their congressman?
Yeah, especially
Absolutely.
around
on the Senate side. Now,
yes.
Two different things. House and Senate now. I think the pressure really needs to go on the Senate side on the consumer protections of Dodd-Frank. On the health care issue, the pressure again needs to weigh in on the House side. So your congressional representatives. Mine is Representative Diana DeGette of Denver. And so I'm going to weigh in again with her very heavily about my expectation that she will do everything in her power so that it never makes it to Trump's desk. So House side for health care, Senate side for Dodd-Frank, and keep those calls coming.
Check out our show at nursetalksite.com and listen every Saturday and Sunday right here on Progressive Voices.
You've been listening to Top of the Hour on the Progressive Voices channel on TuneIn. Commercial-free interviews and exclusive progressive news and information at the top of the hour.
Mary had a little man. The fault.
We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America. From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe it. Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show. Turn up your mind.
The President took strong and decisive leadership here to put the safety and security of the American people first. by accepting the recommendation of the Deputy Attorney General.
He made a recommendation, but regardless of recommendation, I was going to fire Comey.
That's not what, but let me be clear with you. That was not what this is about.
Between campaign officials and Russian officials.
That's not what this was about.
And in fact, when I decided to just do it, I said to myself, I said, you know, this Russia thing with Trump and Russia is a made-up story. It's an excuse by the Democrats for having lost an election that they should have won.
They did not discuss anything having to do with the United States' decision to expel diplomats or impose a censure against Russia.
So did they ever have a conversation about sanctions ever on those days or any other day?
They did not have a discussion contemporaneous with U.S. action.
But what about ever?
My conversation with General Flynn.
What can you tell us about your relationship with the National Security Advisor?
Do you still have confidence in him? Did he lie to you?
I was disappointed to learn that the facts that have been conveyed to me by General Flynn were inaccurate.
Former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn has filed with the Department of Justice as a foreign agent for making more than $500,000 as a lobbyist, essentially for Turkey.
Let me say, hearing that story today was the first I heard of it. And I fully support the decision that President Trump made to ask for General Flynn's resignation.
You're disappointed by the story?
The first I heard of it.
He's lying. Okay, so now Mike Pence is lawyered up. And of course, we told you that Mike Pence needed to get lawyered up because Mike Pence lied. The first time that he heard about General Flynn being a lobbyist for Turkey or Russia or you know, being on RT, or that photo that we all saw that was circulated widely with Jill Stein sitting at the table and with Michael Flynn sitting at the table. He says the first time he ever heard about any of this was after Flynn was fired. Now, that is a bald-faced lie. It's a lie. It was also a demonstrable, provable, easy to prove lie. And when he went on Fox News and kept on saying, oh, well, the first I ever heard about it was, you know, when he was fired, the first I ever heard. So here you have Mike Pence now getting lawyered up. He's lawyered. He says, he was shopping around, they said, for a while to pick the perfect guy for him, to pick the perfect counsel. I don't know how he was, interviewing people when his tongue is firmly planted up Trump's ass so hard. I mean, I don't even think he can stand up straight if his lips aren't applied lovingly to Trump's giant ass. I mean, that thing is huge. So, I mean, he's lying too, and now he's lawyered up. Now, I will say, at least he's like the old school Republican. He's like the cockroach, that will, survive the Trumpocalypse, I think. But, he's in trouble too. So is Jared. Jared is in trouble. And all this president does he ever say any? I mean, he just went down to Miami and he told all the old Cubans, the people who remember the, 13 days, the people that remember the the botched, what is it? Yeah, the Bay of Pigs. He was talking to the old people and he was, asking, telling them, oh, we're going to undo what Obama did with the Cuba trap. Let me tell you, that's a $4 billion business. Florida loves it. Cruise companies love it. Airbnb loves it. The people of Cuba freaking love it because they can rent out their houses. All of a sudden you get, and you know what Trump is going to put as a restriction on, you can't now go, see, right now you can go to Cuba. Okay. Used to be, we had to go to Canada and then go to Cuba, which is stupid because I'm in Florida, 90 miles away. Okay, so now if you want to go to Cuba under Obama, you could just go to Cuba. You can get on a cruise. You could get on Airbnb. You could rent a little house. You could have a little Cuban rum there, a little Cuba Libre. You could see some of the scenes from The Godfather, like where they took place, where Fredo had, the little Cuba Libre and, where he said Hyman Roth loves these places. They call him Superman. I think you can see why. Yeah, so now all of a sudden he says you can't go as an individual. I can't go to Cuba anymore and do person-to-person contact, meaning I can't get on an Airbnb and rent some Cuban family's house where it benefits them and it benefits me. Can't do that. Now we have to go in a group and we have to keep a log of who we met with in Cuba. His own attorney general won't keep a log of Russians he meets with. His own vice president won't keep a log of any Russians he's met with. Trump doesn't keep any log of any bank servers he has in Trump Tower. But I have to keep a log oh my God, really? And you can only go in a group. You can only go in a group now if you want to go to. This is ridiculous. Ridiculous. And he just keeps tweeting and tweeting about this, it's not a witch hunt. It's a whiny little bitch hunt is what it is. Because here's his tweet from yesterday. He says, why is it that Hillary Clinton's family and Dems dealing with Russia are not looked at, but my non-dealings are? Okay, I can answer that question for you, sir. For starters, she's not the president. Also, she had no dealings with Russia that weren't on the books, and she kept logs. And number 3, Putin didn't make her president. Why doesn't he know the answer to the simplest of questions? He wants Hillary investigated about Russia. What about Russia does he want investigated that Hillary did? At least I'll say Richard Nixon never said that McGovern ought to be investigated for breaking into the Democratic National Committee. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, what is Trump really does still wish that it was 2 years ago today when he came down the elevator, the escalator in Trump Tower. He really still wants to run against Hillary Clinton. I hate to tell him, that ship has sailed, and it's probably in Cuba. Then he tweets, Crooked H destroyed phones with hammer. That is how you're supposed to destroy a secure phone. Just saying. Bleached emails and had husband meet with AG days before she was cleared, and they talk about obstruction. She is going to be investigated further. If you listen to what Dianne Feinstein said, she now wants to interview Loretta Lynch. They're not even done with Hillary Clinton. So I really want to compare yourself and the witch hunt. 58 Benghazi hearings, 58 of them. Hillary Clinton testified under oath for 11 freaking hours. Trump said that he would testify under oath. Let's see it. Mary Kate, Mary Frances, Mary Pat Tova. Let's see it. Come on, girls. Bring it. I am being investigated. See, that's my favorite tweet, though, because he had to type, I am being investigated. So I love that one. But he says, I am being investigated for firing the FBI director by the man who told me to fire the FBI director. No, you're not. You're the man that decided to fire the FBI director. That is what you told Lester Holt. That is what you told the entire, even after Mike Pence stuck up for you. And he's doing the same thing now with the House Republicans on the health care bill. Those House Republicans took a really hard vote to take away health care from 27 million Americans. They did it. They took that vote. And now that it's part of their record and they have to run for re-election in 2018, he stands up and says, that House bill that they passed, it was a mean son of a bitch. That's what he said. So he just served up the entire House. How do you think this man is going to get a vote for anything he wants to do? He's not, which is why he's undoing Cuba policy, because that is something he can do because it was done by executive order to normalize relations with Cuba. And so he's doing only the things that he can do all by himself, which makes me think of Lubriderm, Vaseline, and tissue boxes. He undermines every single person that sticks up for him. Who's going to stick up for him anymore? He might be looking at firing Rod Rosenstein as a warning shot to Mueller, but you would think that he would notice that most of his warning shots end up injuring himself. It's dangerous. This man just freaks me out. Dennis in Buffalo.
I was wondering, when you add up all of what is going down with this alt-right, it really reminds me of the Turner Diaries and the demographic or warfare or racial conflict that's going on with the alt-right. Everything that he's doing is like right out of this book. And, you know, he's downsizing the government. He's pitting one side against the other. And he wants to start a race war. Everything that they say in their book, he has either done it or they've been carrying this action out over a period of years with the white supremacist or white separatist groups coming together to elect him in the first place. And then as soon as he get in, you get all of these like mini guerrilla warfare actions going on. A lot of the people have been caught, including the guy that shot the Republicans, but there was others. 99% of the time, it's the Democrats or innocent people that's just getting shot. But this is all part of this hate group. The separation from Canada, you know, with the anger in the Canadians. He wants to separate the Muslims. He wants to separate now Cuba, you know, from going in, and he went after the Haitians. You know, this is like all in that book.
Well, we've suffered with that book for a long time. I mean, Timothy McVeigh and that whole, the whole Murrah building thing was a result of the Turner Diaries. I mean, this whole, you know, white supremacist, you know, reading list, you know, that's just one of the books that they read. They read the Elders of Zion. Not that I think they understand it, but they read it, they quote it. And in fact, when Trump was running, the last ad that he ran, the very last one, quoted from the Elders of Zion. A speech he gave, he literally repeated words that were in the Elders of Zion. And when he ran that ad against Hillary, I don't know if you remember, but he ran an ad against Hillary where Hillary was, you know, her face was on piles of money and he was alluding to Jewish bankers. I mean, yes, he's been appealing to this alt-right, you know, this whole white supremacist nationalist movement. Steve Bannon is part of it. And these are part of the rogues gallery. That's why I say he does pick diverse people for his rogues gallery, and it's something out of a Quentin Tarantino movie. You know, it's like the Hateful Eight. You ever see the cast of that? And they just sit there and shoot each other until everybody's dead.
Exactly.
It's the most amazing
and we're stuck
thing.
In the middle.
Well,
we're stuck in the middle of this.
That's why I'm saying he creates his own hell, but the sad part is he created hell for us.
Yeah, but I'm wondering, it's not just him. You know what I'm saying? He's getting some like the Koch brothers. Somebody is funding these hate groups. For years they've been funding them, and it's been behind the scenes. They got really high.
So let's think about it this way. Let's think about
it.
Let's think about it this way. If the United States, God forbid, you know, please, but if the United States would go to civil war, meaning, you know, one against the other, no matter how we divide it, right? If we would go to civil war, wouldn't that be complete and utter chaos inside the United States?
Yes.
Okay, and in chaos, you can steal, can't you?
Yes, you can.
And wouldn't that be something that the very elite, the top 1% who have been growing richer and richer and richer and richer since the Reagan years would celebrate? That the little guys were all at each other's throats, that the little guys were one against the other, that every conversation that we were having with each other had zero to do with the transfer of wealth or the doing away of the big tranches of money like the Medicare Trust Fund or the Social Security Trust Fund. Right, and that they could steal that money because we were so busy arguing about things that don't matter a whit to our future.
Did you hear that today that he wants to stop the certain TV media personalities, such as your show, such as Rachel Meadows and the others, that those who are always against them, and those were called race traitors in 78 in the Turner Diaries. And anybody who opposes them is to get like a bullet or something, you know, or they want to shut them up real quick.
All right, this is getting a little bit bizarre. I'm just saying to you that book has caused us so much grief for so long. And there is an entire reading list, and there is an entire movement in this country. It's unfortunately, you know, there. It's a tiny little sliver of Americans, but it's there. And these hate groups exist, and they really do want to see something along those lines occur here. Our job is to never let it happen. Our job is to speak up each and every time somebody tries to stir up this kind of race hatred. We have hate crimes designed to penalize people who do that kind of a crime on purpose to stop that.
The Randi Rhodes Show is live on RandiRhodes.com and the free Progressive Voices app for Android and iOS. Visit the App Store or ProgressiveVoices.com now.
Herky jerky. Oh, God, I love herky jerky. And you know what? You asked for something, and they did it all for you. There are now 4 new flavors: original beef, spicy beef, teriyaki beef, barbecue beef, and they're nitrate and preservative-free, and they come in resealable 14-ounce bags. You asked for resealable bags. You asked for nitrate and preservative-free, and you asked for new beef flavors. You got it all 3. These are tender small strips. I love these, but I do also love the existing mild and hot beef jerky. That's the initial love affair that I had with herky jerky, and those are still available for customers who prefer that style. But these 4 new flavors, the original beef, the spicy beef, the teriyaki beef, and the barbecue, they're delicious too. And they are great Father's Day gifts. And for the month of June, $5 off every pack of the new beef jerky. The whole month of June, just use promo code BEEF. Go to herkyjerky.com now and give Dad something great for Father's Day.
Tales of American Political History with Clinton Porter Hackney.
We've been discussing 70 years of the diverse, ambitious, colorful, and full life of Mr. Sam Houston. In the midst of all this crowded life, Houston married 3 times. While still governor of Tennessee, he married Eliza Allen, and within 4 months, Eliza left him and Houston resigned the governorship. Houston then joined the Cherokees again and married Tiana Rogers under the laws of Cherokee Nation, but later she refused to go to Texas. Then at age 47, he married Margaret Lee. She gave him 8 children, stopped his drinking, and moved with him to Huntsville, Texas. In 1863, he developed pneumonia. Of all the people, places, and passions in his life, he may have given us a clue of what was most important to him. Just minutes before he died, Margaret sat by his bedside holding his hand, and he squeezed hers and mumbled his last words, "Texas, Margaret, Texas." This is Clinton Porter Hackney at cphackney.com.
Hi, we're back, and everything is possible again. Isn't it beautiful? Well, if you want to keep it this way, buy a stinking podcast. Oh yes, you have to buy a stinking podcast. And you get that at RandiRhodes.com, where we're open all day, all night long. RandiRhodes.com. Get your stinking podcast.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
All right, 25 after. I should start doing a little housekeeping here and let you know that we have decided that we were gonna go on vacation the July 4th week. We're gonna milk it into a whole week because it fell on a Tuesday, and we are gonna do that. We're gonna go. We're gonna be off the Monday through Friday of July 4th week, and so I would suggest you catch up on the podcast now that you've told me that I'm binge worthy. Right? You did say that to me. So that's in my head when I make my decisions, that I'm binge worthy. And so if you did buy a podcast, you've got like 200 episodes, right? I mean, Hulu, what do you get? You get 13 Handmaidens, right? 13 Handmaid's Tales. I'm already done with my yearly dose of House of Cards. Was that the best? I can't tell you the end because I don't want it, but you need to watch that this weekend, especially if it rains where you are. Just stay in and watch the whole freaking 5th season. It's unbelievable. And then I'm now making my way through Orange is the New Black. But every time every time she sings trapped in the cage is full, I think of Trump and I think Orange is the New White is what I think. So anyway, so we will be taking off. So this would be a really good time to get a podcast because you have all, you buy the podcast, you get all the shows, you get all the, so I think we've already done 200 shows. So you got a lot of catching up to do. So that's good, right? That's a good thing. All right. So that's what I wanted to tell you. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to tell you, just for housekeeping purposes, if you got a free podcast because you had gotten a reward as a Kickstarter person, I manually did you. I hope it was good for you. I manually did you. I actually manually gave you the podcast. So now, if your podcast is coming to the end, because July 15th is our 1-year anniversary, and we will be back to celebrate that with you. But if you got it through Kickstarter, what you need to do if you're expiring is go to RandiRhodes.com and you go to podcasts and swag and buy the podcast for the next year. I'm not manually going through, is what I'm not doing. I'm not going to manually do you this year because there's too many people. So that's a little bit of housekeeping. So RandiRhodes.com, podcasts and swag, that is where you go to purchase the podcast, okay? All right, so that's all I needed to tell you. Galen in Alexandria, Virginia. Hi.
Hi, happy Friday, Randy.
Happy
it's
Friday,
not such
you
a happy
bastard.
Friday. Yeah, it's not such a happy Friday here. I'm very upset about the Philando Castile verdict. It's breaking my heart.
Yes, for those of you who don't know, Philando Castile's the police officer has been acquitted. There won't be any. He's not going. You could just kill anybody you want as long as they're black.
Yeah. And I didn't see the NRA standing up for his right to have a gun.
Yeah, I know, and it was interesting. But I do have some good news. I have some. I don't know. The Flint, Michigan. The trial for these emergency managers starts on Monday. But in the meantime, you do have 2 more emergency managers who've been charged. 5 more charged for poisoning people in Flint, Michigan, with involuntary manslaughter. So.
Yeah, but I mean, if I were an African American person, I would be ready to riot.
I truly, this is the thing I admire the most about every African American person I've ever been, lucky enough to talk to, and that they trust me so much with the information, and they call me, and I've gotten to know them over 20 years, their perspective and what life is like for them. And I learned that, fathers have to have a talk with their sons and what women go through in their community. I am so lucky to have such a large African American audience. But what never ceases to amaze me, when I listen to stories that are not familiar to me because I have white privilege, and I walk through this world not even having to know half the stuff that they teach me, is their grace, how they forgive people for doing these horrible things. The families of these kids, they come forward, and the first thing out of their mouth is, "We forgive you." And I don't know where that strength comes from. I don't know where that grace comes from. It's something that is something particular in that community that's not ever celebrated the way it should be.
That you're 100% right. But I mean, I really feel like this country is going nowhere fast if we don't have real restitution and reconciliation for the racism that we've had in this country. And I'm not talking about handing individuals checks, but there ought to be a way to give institutions money to help people, colleges. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert on this.
It isn't even helping people. Okay, it isn't even that, because there are so many African Americans that are in the middle class. Okay, there are African Americans that are doing so much better than Appalachia. Okay, so it isn't about that anymore. What it is about is sitting down and hearing the experience and how it's different when you walk around and you're pasty white. How different your experience is than when you walk around and when you walk around this country and you're not pasty white. It's a completely different experience on many, many levels. And then there are things that we all have in common, that we all love our children. We all want to educate our kids. We all want to see them do better than we did. And, the African American community is doing gangbusters in that arena. Gangbusters. The African American community is so much more part of the middle class than anybody ever gives them credit for being. Atlanta
and the Democratic Party.
And the Democratic Party. But, beyond that, the thing is to stand on that wall and make sure you understand that these, little fringy groups, these white supremacist groups, these, Turner Diary race riot people, that they will never win. They can't win because they're not decent. They're not decent. And decency almost always wins the day. We struggle. We take 4 steps forward. We take 2 steps backward. Every time we have a Republican president, we end up in debt. We end up in war. We end up turning the economy backwards. We end up watching the rich get richer again, the inequality get wider again. And then we have a Democratic president who inherits the mess, who inherits the Great Recession, or inherits a Great Depression, literally, where 10% or 12% unemployment. And within the first 100 days, he signs a stimulus package and people, can see the bleeding stop. And then for months and months and months, for 8 years, whatever amount of months that is, you see job growth, job growth, job growth, job growth, over 200,000 jobs created this month, that month, that month, that month. And then you get a Republican president in March. What did we have? 148,000 jobs. You know what I mean? Every time they do this, there are people in this country that will consistently vote against their own best interests. They just will. And we have to protect them against them. It's a horrible job, I admit, but you have to. You actually have to, because you're only as good as the weakest among you. The weakest link can get you killed. That is what I learned in the military, to tell you the truth. And so, people go, well, if you're a vet, why aren't you a conservative? Because that is what I learned in the military, classic liberalism, that you are only good as the weakest person, that the weakest person who can't, climb that wall or can't jump over that fence or can't dodge the bullet or whatever, you're going to end up carrying that person on your back while you're fleeing the bullets because you didn't train that person properly.
So true.
So, you got to look for the weakest link. And that's why I spend my weekends on the freaking Facebook show page, and I go round and round with them, and they call me names. I don't retaliate in the same way. I ask them questions. I'm just curious. Why do you think Jeff Sessions left the room? This causes them to call me, a libtard and a feminist and a bitch and ugly and whatever they're going to call me. And I don't play. I don't take the bait. I just keep on trying to talk to them. Why? Because they are the weakest link.
I know, but, this is why I believe in, we should have, for instance, free junior college in this country.
Absolutely.
I mean, we need people to do jobs which are difficult now. And we don't need people to do, manual labor. And we really we're as weak as our weakest link. If we don't have people to do these jobs, what then?
There are 6 million jobs in this country that are open right this very second, right this minute, that Americans are not qualified to take. And that is a sad state of affairs for a country that put a man on the moon first, for a country that can, use solar energy, for a country who could, use and China has just surpassed us in renewable fuels. Okay, everybody is moving on. Everybody is going into the 21st century, and we have a president that wants us to go not even into the 20th century, which is his century. He's comfortable he just turned 70 freaking one. What else does he know but the 20th century? Okay, not that
we're going to need Wonder Woman. We're going to need Wonder Woman to get us out of this shit.
Well, Wonder Woman was a Jew, so I don't think the alt-right will, have much use for her either.
I mean, I'm just saying, a Superman, Wonder Woman type character to get us out of this mess.
Well,
once we're in it, we're going to be digging forever.
Listen,
we're in it. We're going to be digging forever to get out of it. That's all.
It's so true. It's so sad. It's so avoidable. It's so fixable. And yet we have these people that we keep watching them take office because the people who are the weakest among us keep voting for strong and wrong.
Strong and wrong.
And, this country is so gerrymandered that unless they all stay home, we don't stand a chance. It's just amazing. So maybe they'll all be sick that day. I don't know. If he took away the health care, maybe they would all be sick that day. I don't know. It's definitely the thing that, irks me the most is just how people keep voting and voting and voting to go backwards. Jim in Huntington Beach. Oh, Jim. Hello, Jim. Nope. Brother David. What? Brother David.
Sister, in our souls, we're African American. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Preach it, sister. You're on a roll. You're on fire.
I'm a black woman and a black journalist.
Yes, you are. Quick shout out to the chat room. You know what to do.
Hi, chat
Keep
room.
doing it. Stinking podcast. Follow and retweet at randyrhodes.com. Give what you can and renew because you are as binge-worthy as any of those shows. I binged House of Cards this weekend.
You know, I did not know the answer to that, and so I put it out there one day, and people call me and say, "Oh, yes, you're binge-worthy. I binge."
Oh, yeah.
So you'll be binging that week in July, because if I don't take a break, I am going to fry my brain.
Oh, absolutely. And if nobody deserves it more than you, dear. As always, word to everything you've said, we are, after all, 99 and 100, or 33 100% in alignment all the time. And that 100%, what are we? Ivory soap? We know you'd float. I would dive to the bottom because in deep water, become a diver. And we all have to do that. There are still more of us that get it and got it, even if they didn't vote, get it. 81% of this country simply did not put that man in office. And if that 81%, at whatever level, does everything they can, now we might have a chance of avoiding, at least surviving through World War III, because it is going to be the most incredible pullback. This is all, as we've spoken many times, but it's true. And it hit me when I was finally able to comprehend last year after the event in November. A week later, this really does, it goes way back, although almost way back to the founding. But in activity, it goes back to 1980, when we elected a bad actor and that image instead of substance and statesman. And it's been evolved to where we now have a surreality TV show situation with a bad reality show host and an even worse former radio host
as vice president,
calling Putin shots as vice president. Right.
I mean, I don't think people get this. We have a reality TV star as the president of the United States of America, and the vice president is a talk show host from Indianapolis. I mean, honestly, this is the best America could produce for leadership. I mean, you know that there are awesome people. You know that there's a James Comey now. Now you know that there's a Robert Mueller. You know that there are like serious dudes and serious dudess,
and the Kamala Harris, and the Maxine Waters,
Okay, and this is because of the system and because of how it is rigged. I mean, that was one thing he said that is true, is that the way that we nominate somebody, the way that you win the party's nomination, is so baked into the cake that you really get no choice, and then they produce two people. Out of all these 300 and some million people in this country, you get a choice between two people. One person that you're really, tired of, and another person who's a reality TV star. This is what America actually shoves into your face as being the best presidential material it can produce, and Americans go along with it as if that's true.
And it's back to your weakest link theory. It's almost... It's somewhere between when you're kidnapped, Stockholm Syndrome, and just want Big Daddy to say it's going to be okay. And the unpleasant truths are just flying right over the head. However, that is still, while a constant, the minority. And there are still more of you, period.
Yes, and it's true, but that is why Republicans have taken to the gerrymandering, okay?
Exactly.
They have done it because they understand what you and I and everybody listening understands, that there are more of us than there are of them. And so, therefore, if they make the districts look like, a bad cookie cutter, then the Democrats can show up in full force and have no effect.
Yes.
So that's why, you just have to kind of hope and pray that the Republicans get so sick and tired of this whiny little bitch president who does nothing but tweet, accomplishes nothing for them, has not produced a health care plan that's going to beautifully cover everybody. He's the laziest president I've ever seen. He just gave Mattis complete autonomy over how to run the wars, and Mattis is going to put 4,000 more people in Afghanistan.
Clear for takeoff. The Randi Rhodes Air Force. Air Force. RandiRhodes.com.
Hey, dads, Father's Day is just around the corner, but this Father's Day, I want you to stop and think about one word: legacy. Legacy is a very powerful and defining word. And I want to know what kind of legacy you inherited. Now, what kind of legacy are you going to leave for your children? I want you to call my friends at ITM Trading at 1-888-OWN-GOLD and have a conversation about the legacy building power in gold. Gold has helped dads create financial legacies for their children for thousands of years. Gold is real money. It can't go bankrupt. It survived every failed government, every economic crisis in history. Gold symbolizes wealth and safety. So dads, if you've been thinking about buying gold, now is the perfect time because gold is on sale, priced below record highs, and you can get gold and silver delivered right to your home or office. Start building a golden legacy for your children today by calling ITM Trading right now at 1-888-OWN-GOLD, 1-888-OWN-GOLD, 1-888-OWN-GOLD.
Hey, this is Kristen Rao Finkbeiner on the Progressive Voices Network, and here's what we're talking about on Breaking Through, powered by Moms Rising. We are joined right now by a superhero, Wonder Woman, whose leadership I follow daily, Alicia Garza, co-founder of Black Lives Matter, Special Projects Director of National Domestic Workers Alliance. Welcome, Alicia.
Thank you.
Now, I was really excited because this week, the Status of Black Women in the United States report came out by the National Domestic Workers Alliance and the Institute for Women's Policy Research. And there is very, 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 very important information in here that everybody should read. First of all, you can find this report on www.domesticworkers.org and just look for Status of Black Women in the United States. What should everybody be sure to look at in this report?
I think the thing that's really important about this report is that it's one of the few that exist that really talk about what's happening to and with Black women in all 50 states throughout the country. And the overall framework that is helpful to understand the report is that Black women are working hard, both to shape and save our democracy and also working hard inside of our economy, but that for Black women, hard work is not paying off on either dimension. And so what we did here was we really tried to paint a picture of what is the status of Black women in our economy. What's the status of Black women as it relates to healthcare, childcare, criminalization. And then we also didn't just look at the problem, but we also offered a set of recommendations for how we might go about building a movement that can help to lift and support Black women, recognizing that Black women are caring for us in a number of really phenomenal ways.
Now's the time when we don't just resist, we persist, and we move forward solutions. So what solutions are in here that you love that everybody should love too?
There's not actually a lot of data that exists around what Black women are facing in particular areas. And so it's important for us to invest in data that helps us better understand what's happening. The other things that are really important are things that many of us have been talking about for a while. One of these things includes increasing supports for Black women who have had contact or relationship with the criminal justice system, making sure that when Black women have access to housing supports, education supports, job opportunities, that it actually helps to make sure that Black families stay intact. One of the things we know from the report is that 8 out of 10 Black mothers in the United States are the sole breadwinners for their families, or they earn more than 40% of the overall income that's necessary for the household. And so one of the things that we really want to make sure of is that Black women who are taking on these enormous responsibilities have the supports they need to be able to support families. That means increasing supports for childcare. We've talked about kind of having childcare subsidies, right, that come from our government that allow most families to be able to access the care that they need at the same time that they're caring for others. Those are two really big recommendations that I think are helpful in terms of thinking about how might we change this dynamic where Black women consistently are on the losing end of many of the disparities that exist in our society.
Hear more from Breaking Through, powered by Moms Rising, whenever you want it, on demand at progressivevoices.com or on the Progressive Voices app.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
I want to also give my thanks to John Choi and the prosecutor's office. They did a great job in the representation of the facts in this manner in which my son was murdered. And I will continue to say murdered, because where in this planet do you tell the truth and you be honest and you still be murdered by the police of Minnesota while you have your seatbelt on and you're in a company with a woman and a child? My son would never jeopardize anyone else's life by trying to pull a gun on an officer and the gun was not fire ready. These are some of the facts that came out in the trial.
I don't know why it stopped, but that's Philando Castile's mother. And you remember Philando Castile. He was sitting in the car with his girlfriend and the infant, it was a 4-year-old, in the back seat. And he said, "Officer, I have a gun." And he was still with the seatbelt on in his car. And they shot him. And his girlfriend videotaped it. And everybody saw it. It was obvious what happened there. And, they got off, the officer, no conviction today. It's a sad, sad country in this justice, and you look at, how we were moving forward with the question of when will we have equal justice under law, how we were moving forward, how we were trying to fix the justice system, how we were trying to, stop the disparity in sentencing with powder cocaine versus crack cocaine, and this 2 million people, that are sitting in jail for low-level drug offenses, how we were trying to move forward, the decriminalization of marijuana and then the legalization of marijuana and all that. And now we got this crazy Justice Department headed by a guy who doesn't recall nothing, who doesn't know what the rules are. He's in charge of the Civil Rights Division of the criminal justice system, and he doesn't know what that means. And we're going backwards again. We're going backward. I remember when we launched this show back a year ago in July, all we talked about, we had shooting after shooting after shooting after shooting after shooting after shooting. I mean, it started with, Laquan McDonald and Ferguson, Missouri, and all these places. And then, Philando Castile happened while we were on the air, after we launched. I couldn't believe that one, because that was all, she was so calm, his girlfriend, Diamond, she was so calm. And she's, don't tell me you just murdered my boyfriend. Don't tell me you just, and she videotaped the whole freaking thing. And you would think you could get justice. No, you can't. You can't. But here's his mother, and she's saying, look, we fought this for you, and we fought this for you, and we fought this for every interracial couple, and we fought this for people that, know better, and we fought that. It's just an amazing thing that we are lucky enough to have people like this alongside of us who show the most amazing amount of grace under the most ridiculously cruel and vicious circumstances. But just know that we have an attorney general who doesn't give a rat's ass about justice. He gives a rat's ass about his own ass. The president doesn't give a rat's ass about justice. He cares about himself. We have an entire administration of people who are so self-centered and self-focused and self-serving that we're going to go back about, 10, 15 years in our fight for equal justice in this country. Now, like I said, Monday, I could tell you the two things we're going to be talking about. There's just no question in my mind. Everybody will be talking about Megyn Kelly's interview with, douchebag Alex Jones. Alex Jones is already leaking he leaked, I'm not even going to show it to you. It's just so bizarre. I didn't even want to do it because I don't want to give any promotion to him. But, on Father's Day, Megyn Kelly has decided that the father she wanted to interview was Alex Jones. I mean, it's the sickest thing ever. Thanks, Andy Lack. I have really never met a program director who ever had his crap together in all these years that I've been on the radio. I really never have. I've never met one. They're all ne'er-do-wells who sit in their office with the door closed, praying to God that you don't figure out they don't know what they're doing. They live in fear every single day, these program directors. I'm so glad I don't have one. I'm the program director. But it's a real sick job, and they all think they know what's going on out there and what you want to hear and what you want to see and what you want to be told. It's a crazy thing. They always hire somebody who's never done this to program this. Hey, you'll be the only person from radio on our radio network. Great. That'll work out just what could go wrong? But Andy Lack is now programming NBC, and it's such a tragic thing that I have to sit through Greta Van Susteren in my car if I forget to change the channel, or if I'm waiting for Hardball, which I do like. It's pretty much the only thing I watch on that channel anymore. But now I got to suffer through Megyn Kelly on Father's Day interviewing a guy who said that the kids in Sandy Hook were child actors, which he says now he will admit they weren't. So all of a sudden we're supposed to forgive him for these thousands of hours of broadcasting about this false flag that used child actors, because now he says he admits that they were real kids. Oh, thank you. Anyway, he taped her while she was interviewing him, and then he made his own edits to show you what he thought it should have sounded like in the final edit. And she made her edits so that she could put on the TV what she thought should make it into the final edits. And now, they're saying, oh, well, you'll decide. Who the hell cares? It's Alex freaking Jones. He's an oozy, pussy gravy sore on the skin of humanity. A necrotic piece of flesh on the body human. So you'll be talking about that. I know that's going to come up on Monday. And the other thing that's going to come up on Monday is Flint, Michigan. Because on Monday, the 19th, that is when Genesee County District Court will hear the cases of Darnell Early, who served as Flint emergency manager at the time the city changed its water source to the Flint River in April 2014. I mean, it's only 2017. Notice how fast those cops were. That cop was acquitted. Notice how fast that happened. That only happened, last July. Done. But emergency managers that actually switched the water supply, knowing damn well that there was no filtration system and that water supply was unsafe for the city, and kept it a deep, dark secret to make Governor Ricky Snyder look good, took 3 years to get to trial. 3 years. 5 more yesterday were charged with involuntary manslaughter in the Flint water crisis, and 2 former Flint emergency managers will go on trial on Monday. So I expect that, barring any, nervous breakdown by the president with his, tweets, that's kind of what's going to be out there on Monday. Sean in Santa Paula.
Hey, great program, Miss Program Director. You're doing a fine job.
Thank you.
The shooting was horrible. The DC cops, what heroes they are. All over the country, the cops are the heroes.
I can't hear you.
I said all over the country, the cops are the heroes in most cases. It's the courts that let these guys go. These shooters with the past records of violence, using their guns. They get to keep their guns,
No, I mean, listen. So you can make this statement that most cops are really brave, risking their lives, doing the right thing. It's the good cops that agree with me that the bad cops have got to go or face the bar of justice when they shoot somebody on an iPhone camera. Playing,
yeah, that was horrible.
I mean, and that the good cops today are weeping just right along with Mrs. Castile. Okay, they're all saying, "My God, can't we clean these effers out?"
Yep, they've got like you said, they've got instant decisions they've got to make. The problem is when the courts let these violent offenders keep their guns. There's got to be stricter codes. If a person attacks somebody using a gun,
the word that you're groping for here is justice. There has to be justice when somebody is caught on TV on a camera murdering somebody, there should be justice.
Yeah, well, that's a separate situation where the cops are shooting, as opposed to when the shooters are people who shouldn't be owning guns. And I'm a gun advocate for people who deserve to have guns. They can have all they want, just don't use them for violent reasons, against other people. And this particular shooter, he had a past of using his guns for violence. And, he hadn't murdered anybody yet, but, why was he allowed to keep his guns,
Who?
The shooter in Virginia, the one who shot at the congressman.
Oh, I didn't know which shooter you were talking about. We have so many.
Right. No, those are the cops who were the heroes there.
Okay, so that man, that's another question of justice. So that man his neighbors had called the police on him, saying he was shooting toward their house. He had been seen taking his daughter out of a neighbor's house, broke down a neighbor's door, then dragged his daughter by the hair, out of the house, right? Was brought up on domestic battery charges, takes a pocket knife and cuts a seatbelt off of it. I mean, and this man is allowed to have his charges dismissed? Really, exactly. And then to see these commentators on the right who politicize the issue. No, it's ridiculous. Don't you know why they do that? They do that because they don't want to have the gun conversation. They don't want to talk about the fact that this president undid the basic rule that everybody wanted passed. That was that if you were adjudicated mentally ill or the disability application that you made was based on your having schizophrenia or you're being unable to complete the paperwork on your own, you needed assistance, that you should be flagged in a background check for somebody who needs extra scrutiny. We actually got that passed by executive order by Barack Obama. And what did Trump do in his first 100 days? He said mentally ill people can have guns. What could go wrong?
Exactly, but that goes a little bit further, though. There's people that don't deserve to have guns because of their use of guns for intimidating others.
But again, it's a question of justice because if the charges are dismissed, then there's no way for them to show up on a background check.
Yep, that's getting back to my point about the courts. Yep, absolutely.
It's all a question of justice. Every single issue that you could possibly dream up that where there's gross violence, or there's a mishandling of a gun, or there's a crazy person with a gun, or a terrorist on the watch list that has access to guns, either at a gun show or on the internet, or because charges were dismissed, whatever. That is an issue of justice. And we have Jeff Sessions as the Attorney General, the top cop in this country. What in the world do you think that is any good could come from that situation? Meanwhile, have a good weekend. Try and stay away from, things that aren't Father's Day like on Father's Day. Celebrate your dad. Mine is past, and my God, what I wouldn't give to have him back for Father's Day. So appreciate your family. Hug your family. Love your family. And buy a stinking podcast for your family. No, really, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. We appreciate you. Buy a stinking podcast. Go to randyrhodes.com for the whole thing and a podcast. Buy a stinking podcast.